They always called him just her black stepfather, like it was some kind of warning, you know? The kind of thing whispered at the family table when they thought you were out of earshot. The sort of cheap punchline passed around over glasses of sparkling cider and brittle, practiced smiles. But I'll tell you, all those snickers and all those little sideways looks, they disappeared the minute Lena started crying and Malcolm Harper's name echoed across that auditorium stage. Sunlight streaming in as if the universe wanted every eye in the place wide open for what was about to happen. Graduation day is supposed to be this clean break, balloons, hugs, start of a new chapter. For Lena, though, the joy always had these jagged edges. She glided across the reception hall in her best heels, clutching her diploma, trying to breathe over the tightness in her chest. Walking beside her was Malcolm, quiet and steady, his old navy blazer a little faded, shoes scuffed at the toes, nothing fancy, but there was a gravity to him, a kind of warmth that didn't need to shout. He just looked at her, eyes full of that proud dad love, and it said more than 1,000 words. But you could feel the static in the air, especially when they neared the refreshment table, where the Crowleys had set up camp. Pearls and pressed collars all lined up like mannequins in a store window. That's when the whispers started, slithering right into Lena's ear. "Is that the driver she brought?" one said. "He's just her stepfather, only married in." Another clucked, "She could have brought someone respectable at least." Lena's hand tightened around her program. Malcolm never flinched, never has. But she saw the way his jaw ticked, the way his hands fidgeted in his pockets. Her mom was a no-show again, always some excuse. But Malcolm, he'd driven all night, straight through, never complaining. Still, he stood out like a bruise in that crowd. Lena wanted to shout it, wanted to tell everyone this was the man who pulled her through her hardest years, the one who stayed when everyone else walked out. But instead, she just dragged him over to greet a professor, holding herself together by a thread. As they moved past a cousin who made a big show of shifting her purse away, Lena hooked her arm through Malcolm's. No words, just silent solidarity. Neither of them were going anywhere. Somewhere nearby, a cousin's voice rang out, slicing through the forced laughter. I wonder what her real father would think. Lena's spine snapped straight, a crackle running through her. Malcolm didn't ask what was wrong. He just reached over and touched her hand, gentle and grounding, like he'd always done. And for a split second, Lena was 10 years old again, huddled in a pickup truck that rattled and wheezed while her classmates stared. Malcolm, grease-stained from the shop, would hand her a cup of cocoa and say, "Tough day?" Never asking for explanations, just letting her know she wasn't alone. He'd never finished high school himself, but he'd help her build volcanoes for science fairs, read To Kill a Mockingbird out loud slow and steady, even when he had to sound out half the words. Sat through every screechy violin recital, cheered like she'd played Carnegie Hall, and when her real dad left with a lie and a slammed door, Malcolm didn't say a word. He just kept showing up, conferences, appointments, late-night study sessions. He never asked for anything back. And here he was now, looking so out of place, but so entirely right. Lena slid her hand under his. "You okay?" she whispered. He grinned, gave her that classic wink. "You're the one in heels." It was enough to make her laugh, even with the poison in the air behind them. Suddenly, the auditorium dimmed. The chancellor stepped up, voice booming off the polished floors. "We begin our honorary recognitions." Lena's stomach knotted. She hadn't heard for sure, but rumors were floating. Maybe she'd be called up? The Crowleys had clustered in their best linens and jewelry, all their eyes locked on Malcolm at the back, who stood alone, hands clasped, never sitting with the family. One cousin hissed, "Maybe he's here to clean up after." Another giggled, "Who wears shoes like that to graduation?" Lena heard it all, but she didn't even flinch. Just kept her eyes fixed ahead, holding Malcolm's calm like a shield. Then everything shifted. The chancellor started talking about a special award, unannounced, for sacrifice, leadership, community. Lena felt her heart stutter. And then Malcolm Harper. The name landed in the room like a thunderclap. Malcolm's eyes went wide. For the first time all day, he looked genuinely surprised. Lena shot to her feet, clapping before she could think. One by one, the room joined her. Only the Crowleys stayed frozen, stuck in their seats. Malcolm looked like he was glued to the floor, but Lena nodded him forward. He started toward the stage, slow and steady, while the whispers dissolved into applause. The dean started telling a story, something about a subway bombing a dozen years ago, someone rushing into smoke, pulling strangers out, giving CPR, then vanishing before the reporters arrived. Lena felt a chill. She remembered the headlines, the subway Samaritan who'd never stepped forward. The dean explained how anonymous donations had led them to the man standing in the room now. Cameras flashed. The whole room was hushed. Malcolm Harper, the dean said, her voice shaking with pride. The same folks who'd called him a janitor, a driver, now stared at him like they'd seen a ghost. He took the stage, eyes locking with Lena's, every ounce of humility plain as day. I wasn't expecting this, he said into the mic, voice as soft as a lullaby. I didn't do any of it for recognition. I did it because someone once did it for me. And then he glanced at Lena. My stepdaughter's the most brilliant person I know. Not because of her grades, but because she gets back up every time life knocks her down. When her father left, I stayed, not because I had to, but because she deserved someone who would never leave. I never wanted thanks. I just wanted her to know she wasn't alone. Silence, then a wave of applause, fierce and raw, rolling over the room. Lena was standing, clapping with everything in her, not even caring about the tears on her cheeks. Malcolm came down, not as the man in the old suit, but as a hero. The same relatives who'd whispered and laughed now looked small, brittle, and out of place. Back home that night, the light coming in through their kitchen windows was gentle and warm, dust motes swirling over the counter where Lena set two frames. One, a lopsided crayon drawing she made in 3rd grade. My hero Malcolm. The other, a glossy photo from today, Malcolm under the spotlight, applause frozen midair behind him. She swapped out the old drawing, careful, almost ceremonial, and set the new photo on the fridge. He came in, saw what she'd done, smiled that quiet, self-effacing smile. You didn't have to do that, he said. I know, Lena answered, her voice thick. But I wanted the world to see what I've always seen. They sat together, just listening to the ordinary sounds of life, the neighbor's lawn mower, a dog barking, kids laughing somewhere out in the sun. And for the first time, Lena felt like she didn't have to prove anything to anyone anymore. Her hero was finally seen by the world, but more importantly, by the people who'd spent a lifetime overlooking him. So, here's the real question. Who gets to decide what a hero looks like? Is it the guy in the shiny shoes or the one who shows up every day, quietly, until the world finally notices? Tell me, if you had to choose between being admired or being the one who stays, which would you pick? I want to hear your take. What does justice look like when nobody's watching? And who in your life wears the invisible cape? Drop your stories below, and let's talk about what real family, real love, and real courage look like. Because sometimes, the truest greatness walks right beside you, unnoticed, until the moment nobody can ignore it anymore.